Thank you so much for a wonderful lecture by Master Mitch Jason. Now, I will continue my lecture from the last time I was here. That was 2 Saturdays ago. And I focus on the King's Indian defense for black. And here, I would like to continue on one of the very popular line that white played. It is called the Petrosian system, named after the former world champion, Tigran Petrosian. And here the setup is like this. I found a game before that really captured my imagination in chess, and I said one of these days I'll try to play it. So first, let's play on with the actual Grandmaster game, and then if we have time, we can go to my actual game that took place about 2 years ago in this club. But this is the Grandmaster game that I would like to show this morning. The Petrosian system starts like this for black. Knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, knight f3, castle. And you will notice here, class, that in only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves, black already achieved the principle of opening play. And that is develop your pieces rapidly, control the center, and place your king into safety. These are the way to deal in the opening stage of the game. After knight f3, castle, bishop e2. The actual move for King's Indian here, if you're playing black, is, if you remember, who said e5? Very good. e5 has to be played, a stake in the center. Now here, you will probably notice what's going to happen if white simply capture and queens get exchange. And I showed this game about 2 weeks ago. And my opponent, the Russian Maxim Sorkin, played bishop g5, right? And after just simply rook e8, white is either very good in the endgame or just being scared of the King's Indian defense when he tried to exchange queens so early in the game, right? So what happened to that game? If you remember, black was able to win that game in a fine form. So here, let's go back to this position. That's not our topic this morning. We will go to the real battle about King's Indian, where there will be queens for a long time. Okay? So here, the Petrosian system is now evident with this move d5, closing the center immediately. There are 2 ways to play this for white after d5, and 3 reactions for black that I would like to point out at this moment. Right? We have the idea of knight bd7, variation A, knight a6, variation B. However, these first 2 have drawbacks in them. And the third one that is the most popular nowadays is a5. Okay, let's go one by one, a little bit deeper. Knight bd7 immediately blocks the bishop on c8 with the idea of placing the knight on c5. That is a good idea if black can able to make it happen. Knight c5 with the threat on e4. Right? For example, white to move castles. And now, knight c5 attacks the pawn. There's 2 ways to defend it. The knight on d2 or queen c2 with the threat of b4 kicking the knight out of its very important outpost on c5. Okay? So, that is good for black. After a5, white cannot able to play b4 or push the knight away. Alright, any question? Instead, here, white's best is not castle. I tried to study this system for black and try to figure out white's best way to anticipate the arrival of knight on c5. This is where we practice prophylactic thinking. Okay, in prophylactic thinking, Daniel Naroditsky, the newest grandmaster the United States ever had, very young, 16-year-old when he became grandmaster, he said, you have to find out what is your opponent's plan and then work continuation based on that plan. So here, the plan was knight c5. Am I right? If that is the case, with a dual attack on e4, we have to overprotect e4. Therefore, castling is not the best in this position. The best is to overprotect this pawn, and that can be done by either queen c2 first, or this subtle move, knight d2, because after knight c5 class, b4 kicks the knight. A simple chess strategy that you could practice.
First, and just keep the knight from going there before you even have to move the knight back.
Good question. If b4 first, anyone? a5. The immediate b4 create actually some problem for white, and it's very, very playable for black now, because how are we going to defend the pawn on b4? If a3, pawn takes, and you cannot recapture because of the pin on the rook, okay? And if rook b1, pawn takes pawn, and now the knight is unassailable on c5. It cannot be kicked out in any time, right? So the b4 too early, right? Chess is all about timing, right? When your moves are properly timed, they create a strength in the position, the potential. If they were played too early, it could backfire. Right? So here, not castling, but knight d2. So if you play d4 for white, and if you happen to play a system, a King's Indian player, I suggest that you play the Petrosian system. Petrosian is known for his moves that have an effect on his opponent, that they find themselves like under a boa constrictor. They can't move. All their plans are nullified before they even show up, right? Such is the strength of the former world champion, Armenia's Tigran Petrosian. So here, after that scenario, I said to myself, then I don't like knight d7. It blocks the bishop, and after the very subtle knight d2, I can't even play knight c5. What about knight a6? Now, if knight a6, a3 is good, or simply knight d2 again, because after knight c5, we go back to variation A, b4. Subtle moves, if it works in one line, most likely it will work in another line, in different move order. Okay? So, think about that. Therefore, the correct move here, based on the demand of the position. Now here, I would like to remind you of our class 3 weeks ago, when I talked about the demand of the position against the opening, what is recommended by the books. The books will recommend a set of openings, a set of sequence of moves. However, if you follow by rote, you're just playing mechanical chess. It's not you, it's the book. The author of the book understands what he's doing. How about you, the reader? Exactly, right? It's difficult, it's easier for you to start analyzing on your own, even in the early stage of the game. That is the development of a chess player. You start to think on your own. So here, the best reaction is therefore a5. Alright, there you go. a5. Now, I would like you to pay attention on how, after a5, black's position was very beautifully coordinated. He was able to place all their pieces in his maximum square. For example, here, after after a5, bishop g5, an annoying pin, like Mitch said. What do we do whenever your opponent pins your queen or your king? Rules of thumb, immediately ask the question to the bishop. In other words, you must tell him, declare your intentions. What are your plan? Why did you play bishop g5?
Ruben,
Yes?
if that's standard operating procedure,
SOP.
why would you take the queen up to d2? So if the question is put to the bishop,
Remember, it is
because the bishop takes the knight, then the bishop takes the bishop, but that pawn is sitting there for grabs.
What if queen takes the bishop?
So then
well.
queen can
First of all, the queen has no time because remember, white just simply moved bishop g5.
So
He just moved,
could
so
you-
it's black's turn, right?
do you have enough time to prepare for that by moving the queen behind the bishop?
The other way is bishop e3. However, that is time consuming. After just simple knight g4,
So what if you just take before the
Right.
bishop? Oh wait,
if bishop g5, that's why you have to ask the question immediately. Because if you don't, class,
Then you will.
what's going to happen if you don't ask the question immediately? For example, let's play knight a6. Let's go to our strategy as black. Now queen d2, h6 is now difficult to
because it would
Play.
drop once the bishop takes the
you
knight.
drop a pawn. That's why you have to ask the question immediately, ASAP, to the bishop. Declare your intention. What do you want? You want my horse? Or you just want to annoy me? Correct? So here h6 has to be played, the man of the position. Now, Mitch was mentioning earlier that grandmasters, even strong players nowadays, are reluctant in letting go of their bishop so early in the game. A bishop pair advantage is considered a good investment, right, for future. So bishop h4 was played here. He was simply wanting to annoy black's position. Why? Okay, let me explain that. Class, in the King's engine, black's idea here is to be able to play either knight d7 or knight e8 and then play f5, and you will see here a very common way for King's Indian player to play the game, the position, and attack a rolling of the f pawn, the g pawn, and the h pawn, and that's how they wanted it to be played. And so bishop g5 stopped the idea, at least for the moment. All right, because now it requires some more time before the knight can get out and f5 could be played. So h6, bishop h4. After bishop h4, here is a move that black went back to his strategy. In a chess game, you lay down the strategy for the game, but along the way, your opponent may change, may change the contour of the position, create threats, and you have to stop and see what is the threat all about, and have to put on the side first your actual desire for your own position, correct? So here, after seeing that white's idea has been stopped, okay, there's no more immediate threat, we go back to the strategy of the game, the plan that you have created based on a5. By the way, what was the plan after a5 anyway?
Knight a6.
To play the knight on c5 without anybody bothering the horse, correct? A prophylactic move, right? So now we go back to that idea. Now this time a6 without. Go ahead.
Just real quick, before we proceed with the black strategy.
Yeah.
The rule of thumb you said about putting the question to
Put the question on the bishop.
Right, so now the bishop dropped down to h4, right?
Yes.
And we don't necessarily need to put another question by going to g5.
Good question.
Because now we basically, even though that'll theoretically be putting a question to the bishop, but at g5, that pawn would be attacked twice.
Not when you play g5, this is like burning the bridge. You are really up for trouble here because it could be double-edged. Why? you created a real weakness on the king side of cover. The other good thing is you make this bishop's life really miserable by biting on several granites here. Dark square. But you see, I think the end will justify the means here. You know why? Because you will notice that white is not yet castled. Therefore, the immediate g5 will render it will explode after h4. Right? And suddenly black's position will collapse because of white not committed to the king side first. So this idea is good if the king is committed here. A different story, because there's no idea of h4 to open the h file. Take note of that, class, okay? So bishop h4, g5. Here, when you mention there are two attackers,
White hasn't castled.
right? White hasn't castled. There, g5, you said after g5 because it's depended by a pawn, but it's attacked twice. Now, here, white will not sacrifice because that's just simple pawn. It's not worth the sacrifice. 2 pawns, right?
Two pawns,
It's
you keep the pin,
it's not worth the sacrifice.
but you keep the pin. And now you can push h4 and try
And
to
now
crack that
H
open.
file's open.
I've done this in blitz. I don't do it in tournament, but I do this.
Please don't do this in actual with longer time control. Maybe in blitz, because blitz is mostly about tactics. Okay, this is playable. What? See, after going back to our line, after just sidestepping, the pin disappear, and after knight here, h7, and then f5, and black still went on to his original King's Indian formation. Okay, without being bothered by the bishop. In other words, the sacrifice could work a piece for 2 pawns or 2 pawns for a piece if it will have a good continuation in the form of attack, right? But here you will see that the attack just stopped. Okay.
Ruben, one more question. Is part of the Petrosian strategy to lock up the center like that so you don't have to castle?
The set here is a very good Petrosian strategy. The Petrosian strategy after d5 is to immediately remove the knight's arrival on c6, because one of the key ingredients is strategy for black in a non-standard King's Indian is to play knight e5, and then, for example, white simply castle. And knight c6 now, and only now if you play d5, the difference is the knight will become a part of the attack of army that are together in the king's side. They are closer now to the enemy king compared to the standard Petrosian system, immediate d5, where the knight cannot be a part of the attack on the king's side for a while. And that gives white a lot of play on the king's side. Why? Less men in here. 1 man less. This knight will be here. So you see the difference, right? 2 minor pieces compared to 3 is something to be, you know, always put into consideration. Okay? So good question. After bishop g5, h6, bishop h4. Let's go back to the game real quick. What time we have? 11:10. After knight a6, so black went back to his original strategy. Knight d2. Now here, the beauty of this bishop h4 first is now knight d2 was played without blocking the bishop on c1. A good strategy. Both grandmasters are playing very well here. All right. This is outside the range of the horses. So now here, after knight c5, this pawn is under attack and can also be even attacked more by f3. And you see now the bishop has a magic square on f2. You will see now the beauty of Petrosian system for white and for black. This is a balanced game that I'm showing you. This is also good for black. It's good as well for white if you play d4 and c4. So you can study this game on both sides. So after knight d2, black introduced a very subtle sidestepping of the annoying pin. Can we spot the move? This pin is really the cause of black's headache. It stopped him from generating immediate counterplay based on f5. Wait, I'm sorry, this is not castled yet. Okay. Black played queen e8. Mysterious queen move. And what does it achieve, class?
Frees the knight to move.
The knight now is free. It can move. And that move. Remember, our moves are based, they are connection of successive moves. Your previous move should be connected to your next move. And so on and so forth. Otherwise, if you play random chess, you play one move here and a different thought on the other, you are mixing up ideas, and what happens is that you are not playing with a plan. Your opponent will notice, okay, my opponent is just playing shadow chess, shadow boxing, no thought, no idea. Go ahead.
What's wrong with black bishop to g4, sort of counterpinning?
Black bishop to g4 right now?
Or one move before.
If one move before, the queen is still here, that will be free because the g4 is covered twice by the bishop and the queen, right? Let's,
You'll just lose the knight in the exchange.
No, but the knight can't take that.
the knight cannot take back because the pin, right? So now one thing that you notice in King's Indian type of position, the feature of the c8 bishop, which a lot of times is not being moved, right, all the way to the middle game until it's absolutely necessary. Now, let me explain the theory of this bishop on c8. The bishop on c8, although it's not developed, it occupies or controls a diagonal. And so in that in mind, the bishop is developed, you know, it's indirectly developed. That's what we call it in chess. And your question?
Wouldn't it also be there to protect the b7 pawn?
The bishop protects the b7 pawn. Actually, black is willing to give that up just to generate counterplay here. And we will probably see it more. And the idea of a5 with knight c5 is really to stop any kind of queenside game, queenside continuation for white. There's nothing to do there on the queenside after our favored setup is achieved. Okay, and it will show later on in the game. Go ahead.
Since white has one knight protecting e4,
Yeah, two actually.
he could move the c knight to a4
To b5.
and stop that knight from coming in. Right?
Now remember, your idea only constitute your move constitute only one idea, and that is to prevent c5. And in the process, you place a centralized piece far from the battle. Not a very good strategy in chess, unless the idea really contains not only a single thought. Here, it's a single thought of preventing c5. Now, how strong is coming a knight c5? Of course, it's very strong. He respected that. That's why he placed these two knights. But, you know, it's not worth the time of placing a knight at the edge of the board, saying that, you know, a knight on the rim is
Yeah.
dim.
So-
Remember that.
So if black moves the queen to the e square,
e8, that is the move.
um, if you move the f pawn up one, you could bring the bishop back and then cover that square from the knight.
Exactly. That is White's plan, why he played knight d2. Remember, the moves in chess are connected, interconnected from the previous to the next move. They're connected. So the placement of this knight here not only overprotects e4, but paves the way for the f pawn to go either one square or two square. Depends on the position requires it. And then place the bishop back to f2 so that the knight on c5 can be under watch. All right, very good strategy for both sides. It's a strategy of two strong players, black and white. White plays a very nice setup. Black also played a very nice setup. So after castle, white finally castle. Okay, if my concept of moves are connected to one another, the last move was queen e8, what should be your next move if it's black to move?
The knight, 'cause it's gonna
Correct, but where? So you will see now intercorrelated moves that creates a thought and creates some sort of harmony of the position. So here, the previous move was queen e8. The knight went to knight h7. And the idea is to play our favorite King's Indian move, f5. F means forward, right? So after knight h7, a3. Now, while he was trying to stop black from achieving his aim of kingside activity, white also was not deterred in creating some kind of block, trying to stop the knight from coming to c5, and that can be achieved by, if knight c5, you will now see that b4 is actually playable because a takes b4. For example, knight c5, b4, a takes, a takes. Now, even if rook takes, the rook is under protection by the queen, and the knight can be kicked out of c5. Strategy works for white, right? Therefore, black cannot play knight c5 immediately. If that is the case, what should we do? Knight h7 was the last move. The strength of f5 is connected if there is a knight on c5. The reason? The geometric pattern of one square, e4, which become the battleground. With one attack of f5, that can be easily protected or defended. With two of them, if a knight on c5 and then you hit with f5, you will now see a very real tension in the center of the board. And that could create a lot of problem for white, right? However, white also tried to stop the knight arriving from c5. Therefore, black need to go back to his original plan. How am I going to make sure that the knight won't be kicked out?
How about a4?
a4 is good only if it's not covered twice and defended only once. Therefore, that brings you to your next move.
d7.
Very good. Now you learn how to create chess strategy, class. Okay? This is how you play. This is how you're supposed to play chess. And this is, if Ruben made master because of this simple way of playing chess, you can do it too. Right? Your moves should be connected to one another. Right? Make them a part of a whole. All right? They're not separated from each other. So now, bishop d7 with the idea of your a4 comes to mind. After that, bishop d7, white is forced to prevent, because once this arrives here, you will see that black will enjoy a lot of privilege, not only the c5 square, but now we are given the b3 square as well. And the game of black doesn't only focus on one side of the board, which is kingside. It's actually controlling the whole board. Okay?
So you have to do your own a4.
So now, how should we prevent that? If we play a4, we give our opponent a different outpost. This time, a choice of two, both delicious ones, b4 and c5. Take your choice. And an arrival of knight there could spell a disaster for white's camp. Therefore, this is basically force, b3, preventing pawn to reach a4. Okay, now you will see here that after b3, we see a loosening of white's position. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
Our star piece for black is the bishop on g7. You will now see an X-ray attack here, that if this opens up, somebody will get in trouble in the diagonal. Somebody will be hit by lightning. Right? And so that gives you...
So that means black wants to play f5 now, right?
f5,
Open up the square
After f5, f3. Here, Ogden Grandmaster Cvitan found a really nice way to continue the game, and this was very noble back then. And he played h5 here. At first glance, I was wondering what is the idea of the move. Now, can we see the idea of the move? It seems like a weakening, and it's not part of normal King's Indian move. Normally, you will play f5 here and see what happened, right? But then after f3, white is prepared for that arrival of pawn there. He's well prepared. So the element of attack, right, and the element of surprise should always be a part of your arsenal in chess. Here is a surprising move, h5. The idea is very simple. Can we spot it?
Bishop h6.
Stopping the bishop and queen battery.
Bishop h6.
Bishop h6 is very good, bringing our star piece into life. Now, that is the one idea. Remember, a move is considered good or excellent if it doesn't only contain one good idea. This, however, contains more than one, probably two or more. The idea is g5, and after bishop g3, h4 traps the. Very simple. But a lot of players, 8 out of 10, will miss it. Right?
Most people are afraid to destroy their
Because
board.
it's not a standard move in the King's Indian. That's why. It's not a standard move. You don't see h5 normally in King's Indian type of position. Right? And I said this is an excellent move back then. So after h5,
f3 does everything. Gives the bishop an escape square.
f3 does everything. Now, if I was white here, I should be happy. The reason is, okay, the center is protected. The knight was stopped from getting into c5. The bishop will get a new diagonal, a new lease of life, right? And black there's nothing to fear for white. Or is there? Let's see how the game went. After f3, bishop h6. So now g5 is no longer necessary class because the bishop can just go to f2 and suddenly you find these two pawns that are both weak. Okay? So here the threat of g5 was so strong that the threat is stronger than the execution, and white has to react. When your opponent will react on your move, we consider that you have the initiative. Now, initiative is a temporary advantage in chess, right? And initiative you have to hit while the iron is hot, right? You have to strike. So, but after f3, the whole idea of g5 was no longer valid here. Therefore, we go to the other idea of h5, and that is bishop h6. So in other words, if you find depends on one of my idea, I have another one that it's considered under the principle of two weakness or principles of two idea. You can depend only one at a time. Am I right? You cannot depend all of them at the same time. If you introduce several idea in a move, guess what? Your opponent will be rattled. They will be in trouble, and they will it will cause fear in their heart. So bishop h6. After bishop h6, bishop f2 because of the threat of check here. I remember in your game shown by Mitch earlier, that bishop was lethal on h6. It arrived with a mate on e3. So here it was prevented. Bishop f2. And now after the bishop is gone from this diagonal, the queen went back. Dark square. The queen left actually achieved two purposes. One is to make sure that the queen goes into a more active vicinity in front of the opponent king. The other one connects the rooks together. And we now have a very promising position for black. White's position is still very solid. But now black's forces are what I call pent-up energy. Right? They're about to be unleashed. So let's see how it was done. Queen c2. h4 was played. a different way of playing the king's engine. All right. After h4, rook a to b1, bishop f4. Okay, here the bishop f4 was prepared by the previous move h4, so then g3 is not possible, because here after f takes g3, h takes g3, h takes, and after the bishop goes back, you will see now we have an h-file avenue for black to work on. Okay, so that's the idea of h4. So after bishop f4, rf d1, queen g5. Now, I don't know about you, but if a position like this show up in my game, where a lot of my opponent's pieces are in front of the king, I'll start feeling nervous. Actually, I start feeling afraid. As in, you cannot see the threats immediately, and you cannot spot them in a very limited time. You know that there's something in there. Something is lurking in the coordination of black's forces. The bishop, the queen, and the knight that is about to arrive via f6, h5, and who knows where else, maybe f4.
Bishop h3.
Yeah. Ruben,
Yes?
wouldn't you want to move your bishop on e back to f1 so he doesn't get a pin with his d bishop?
Correct. But here, I would like you another rule of thumb here. If your opponent is creating an extra attack either on your queen or your king, the best rule, you learned that from me, get out of the x-ray immediately. So the correct response here is king h1. Just get out of the danger zone immediately. All right? So when that happened, king h1, knight f6 was played. Bishop f only now, bishop f1. Knight h5. Let's see, black's idea cannot be stopped by white. He can take all his time because of the lock position, right? Here, you see that during the course of the game, white was able to stop this idea of knight coming here. But in the process, he was able to brought all his forces just to stop that one idea. And with that reason, he made himself vulnerable on the other side of the board, because now they are suddenly stepping on each other's squares. All right? So,
Could you say it was a mistake on white's part to leave the h4 bishop pawn there?
this pawn here,
Yeah.
the problem is we cannot stop it from getting there, and there's no way for us to take advantage or even attack it. The queen is too far. Right, that's what I'm saying. They're stepping on each other. If the queen can have only access on e1 to attack h4, that requires time, and time in chess is called tempo. All right.
So was there a point in time before the bishop moved back that he could have removed the knight on d2 to go down in there to like get forces up there?
There's probably some time the reshuffling of pieces, but in every plan that we could conceive for white has a different continuation in mind. So he has some kind of other way or other form to continue the attack. So let's focus here. Knight f6, bishop f1, knight h5, knight e2. Now he's going on defense mode. For example, if he tried to play something else, knight b5, attacking, there's nothing to attack. Or knight a2, I don't know what's the idea. There's not much move for white, right? But just for example's sake, knight b5, this one comes in with check. All right? That can come in, or bishop capture, and then knight. There's a lot of sacrifice that could happen here, and that's probably why white add more defense to the king side. It still doesn't stop black from planting a knight, offering it here. What's going to happen if he capture with a pawn? Pawn takes the opening of the h-file avenue is a disaster. Here, the gate to hell has been opened.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's done. Because no matter how you defend this, white will just get checkmated here. Okay? So it cannot be captured. Place here. Instead, he captured it with the bishop. H takes G3.
Pushed H3.
Maybe H3, but you see here after H3, there's another one in there lurking. First, he removed one of the key piece. Knight takes.
I say queen takes.
Queen takes F4, and only now H3. So, when the smoke is clear, white was happy. Okay, I got out of that alive. All right. But now see here, we are now in the transition from middle game into end game. They think that the king's engine is only for middle game. Far from truth, because here you see the transition of the middle game into an end game. What do we have here that is very important in the picture of this position? The bishop that was hemmed in by its own men. That signifies a disadvantage in white's camp. All right? And so with this queen and the thorn and white's flesh, the pawn on G3, there's still a lot of play left. Tactical motives and early end game play here in the king's engine position. Let's see how it continues after H3, king G7. Very good, Mitch. You guessed most of the move in this game. After H4, king G7, B4.
Before you go on,
Go ahead.
why was it important to move the king to?
Very good question. Anybody?
So the rook can get
Double
H5.
rooks on the H.
The fresh open file is inviting, calling your name, right? Put my rook in there, and it will play by itself. So here we go. B4 instead was played B6. And make sure that white cannot generate any counterplay. 0. So after B6, B takes A5. Here is a beautiful tactic played by black here. Now, automatic recapture by BA5 will give white the 7th rank, rook B7. Am I right? Instead, black introduced 2 of his minor piece into play with effect. Knight C5, finally. Now, you notice, class, take note that this idea of knight C5 was there from the beginning in the opening. And it only materialized now later on in the game. And when it did happen, it creates a major impact in the position because now you see the threat.
And bishop A4.
Arrival of bishop here will really cause black to resign the game. Not to mention, after knight C5, we don't have to recapture with B, but with the rook. With one move, 3 pieces that are dormant suddenly came to life. Because now I have to defend with the threat of A4. And white played rook E1. And next move, class? Rook takes A5. So now you see beautiful coordination of all black's forces from the bishop, the knight, the rook. The rook will come here. The queen is here. You hold all the aces in the position.
Yeah, it's your counterplay.
It's yours. This is the type of play that you see. It seems that white never really made a mistake. But how did he get outplayed in such manner? By black having a plan and a clear plan, and he stick to it, the plan. And he never changed, right? And when it arrived there, it arrived with so much strength. Rook takes A5, Queen C3. It won't take long. Rook H8. The threat of sacrifice, maybe. Queen E3. He wants to exchange queen. Okay, that's a good strategy when you are under attack. minimize the number of opponent's forces. So after that, rook, queen e3. What should you play here?
Queen h4.
Queen h4. Now black doesn't mind going into the endgame, but he played it in style. Played g5.
Wow.
Very stylistic move.
Because if he had gone queen
Because now-
h4, he could take the h3 with the bishop.
This is one thing that you should learn: when not to attack, and when just to be happy with the beauty of your position. And you have to switch from an attacking mode into a positional nurturing advantage mode. Okay, you cannot just continue to attack. Sometimes you have to relax and say, okay, the game is already won. I don't have to, because if you keep the queens on board, for example, queen h3, this queen might become dangerous too. For example, I cannot find one, but maybe f4, and then the knight suddenly comes back to life, right? White will be willing to sacrifice a pawn here just to untangle himself. But why would you allow that, right? Do not give your opponent the Houdini plan. Escape, okay? Okay. Do not let them escape. So, g5. Very nice move. After g5, queen takes, g takes f4. Look at that. Pawn chain is a work of art. The knight is amazing there. The rook, very strong. And after rook a1, because this is under attack, my job here is done. I go to the other side of the board,
Wow.
attacking the weakness. Knight b1 is played to defend. Now if we can find a move here that will render these two, look at them. They dominate their own rank, the first rank. The best move, the next move here is the picture of a king's engine. And after that, white has to resign.
Maybe f5.
f5. What a fitting way to end the game. Because why? The threat class is
Oh yeah, takes.
capture, capture, knight takes.
Yeah.
And if white captures, the bishop comes to life, and the threat of capturing the knight will drop the a pawn, and the game is basically over. Okay, I hope you like this game because it starts from the opening to the middle game all the way to the end game, but they all are connected to each other. All right, very good. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Cvitan Petrosian.